Happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we dive into the world of blueberries. We have quite a few people already online and registered for our session, so we're going to get started right here at the top of the hour. My co-host today is Julia Thompson. She is a culinologist with CuliNex, which is one of InsightsNow's strategic partners. She was also the lead developer for the blueberry report that we're sharing with you. And full disclosure, our chat may make you hungry today. Honestly, ever since we started putting this presentation together, I've had blueberries on my mind, and I may or may not have been purchasing them regularly the last few weeks. I'm Kayte Hamilton. I am the director of InsightsNow's Innovation Center, and it does look like we have some new names that have joined us for today's session. If you're new here, welcome. InsightsNow is a marketing research consultancy, and we bring a behavioral perspective to innovation and product development. We provide both full-service custom research as well as solutions through our collaborative online platform, the Innovation Center. One part of the Innovation Center will be highlighted today as a resource that Julia here used in developing this blueberry report. And Julia, would you like to introduce yourself and CuliNex?
Yes, hi everyone. I am Julia Thompson. I was the lead developer on this blueberry report, and I work for a company called CuliNex that has been doing clean label product development for 16 years. And there are three basic areas that we focus on, and those are innovation and product development, technical sales, and marketing support. So this report was heavily in the marketing support area. So you'll see a lot of that type of stuff during this presentation. And we also work with InsightsNow on a system called Craves, and you'll learn about that a little later. And so we did this report for the United States High Bush Blueberry Council, and they are a grower-driven organization of blueberry growers, and they're here to really provide resources for growers, the food industry, and for consumers. So all of you in the food industry that are on this webinar, the Blueberry Council is really there for you to go to for any information about blueberries, tech docs, suppliers, processing methods, and they also work with CuliNex for hands-on product development. So you can go to them and they'll work with us to help you in your product development.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Julia. Now, something to know about InsightsNow and working with us is that we love collaboration. And for our session today, we actually have a few ways for you to engage with us. You should have a chat box in your webinar controls where you can use that to send us a comment or question throughout today's presentation. We will have time at the end today to circle back and answer some of those. And so I won't be able to see your questions as they come in between screen sharing and controls and everything else. I have 3 different monitors running. If you are having technical issues, my colleague Shelly is also on the line, so she'll be able to monitor for those. So feel free to reach out if something happens with your audio or if you can't see our slides, and she will help you if she can. And maybe not a surprise, but the #1 most common question that comes out of webinar presentations, yes, next week we will be sending out a recording of today's presentation. And in that email, we are also going to be able to link for you the actual final blueberry report that we're going to be talking about today. So if you found this content really interesting and want to dive a little bit deeper into the final publication that the U.S. High Bush Blueberry Council published, you'll be able to read that directly from our email next week. All right, so speaking of engagement, we're going to start off with a quick poll. We would love to learn more about you and what your role is in the innovation process. So let me start that one real quick. And Julie and I tried to be comprehensive in these options, but as true researchers, we do have an other and a don't work in this sector. We're a little bit halfway through our audience voting right now, and Julia, I think you're going to like this attendance makeup. give it just another second or two, see if anybody else wants to vote. I'm going to close this, and what happens if I share it? Do you see the poll results? There we go. So most of us today are in R&D development. So hopefully this material is right up your alley. And insights and marketing folks, so welcome. Hopefully you find some inspiration as well. Now, some of you may be wondering, and I was kind of wondering this when I first started working with CuliNex on it, is why blueberries, and why blueberries for today's conversation? Julia is actually going to walk us all through how their team came about this study. And through that, they're going to teach us about the CuliNex's process for identifying trends in the food category, what went into the actual blueberry ingredient profile, and what is an ingredient profile. And we're also going to share with you some tips for how to incorporate ingredients in innovations, and specifically, of course, for blueberries, with some inspiration at the end of the spec. So, Julia, I am going to formally pass you the mic so that we can dive right in.
So the Highbush Blueberry Council came to us and asked us to create a guide for developers to show the benefits of using blueberries. And we've done this in the past. We've created different ingredient guides for all different types of ingredients. Some examples of things that we have found out in the past were more functional based. So we were really looking at the functionality of these ingredients in the food. So we've done things with reducing sugar in food with dried fruit, using a dried vegetable as a thickener and texturizer, and then adding extra protein with eggs in drinks to thicken it and for the nutritional benefits. And when we started looking into blueberries, there's not a ton of functionality that blueberries will add to your product. But on the flip side of that, they add a ton of health functionality for your consumers. And what's a benefit for your consumer is a benefit to you. So it doesn't always have to be a functional food within your product, but as long as it's still beneficial for your consumer, it is beneficial for you. So usually we start these reports with outside trend research. So we go to third parties and we gather a lot of trend research and see really what our current consumer needs. And then after that, we go to InsightsNow's database to see what consumers are thinking about the product we're working on and if they fit within those trends. And we'll look at examples of that. After that, we'll ideate and come up with products that fit what consumers' needs are based on the InsightsNow database and what fit into the trends. Then we get onto the bench, create these things that we have come up with, and after that, we'll do either internal sensory testing or external sensory testing with consumers. So in the end, this report, we've come up with 5 key trends that blueberries fit into. We explored the health benefits and insights of blueberries, and then we maximized blueberries' versatility in some really cool inspirational formulas for you. The blueberry market is really seeing some growth right now. It is expected to have a compounding annual growth rate of 7.3% between the years 2020 and 2025. And there are a few primary growth areas for blueberries, and these include bakery, snacks, fruits and vegetables, and sweet spreads. Those are just the primary growth areas, and through our research, we really discovered that there's so much more you can do with blueberries, and they really fit into many categories. So the first trend that we see that I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about at this point is health and nutrition. The last 2 years have really upped everybody's awareness of what they're eating and how it impacts their health. Everybody's trying to be as healthy as possible so that when they face the world of germs, they can go out there and conquer. And so blueberries have a low glycemic index. They're high in antioxidant levels, and they have a high fiber content. So it's a really great food to add for that health and nutrition in there. And so superfoods is a big part of this health and nutrition trend. Those are foods that are very rich in macro and micronutrients. And Firmenich has done a study showing that berries are the #1 superfood mentioned online. And then when talking about berries, the #1 berry mentioned was blueberries. So we're starting to see now in our research that people are aware that blueberries are healthy and they do have great benefits for you. And INI's data later is going to help us confirm that. So that's where our heads are at right now when we're doing this research. We see that more than 50% of adults are interested in eating more superfoods, and 2/3 of adults say a good source of vitamins and minerals is a loved or liked healthy claim that they see on foods. And lastly, we see that 8 in 10 adults strongly agree that it is important to them to get foods that are naturally rich sources of vitamins and minerals. And that's an interesting point because that leads into our next trend, that's whole foods and natural ingredients. People really are trying to get a whole balanced diet with the foods that they eat. They want to lean more away from supplements and just get everything they need from their food. And this is kind of the new way of eating. They really are looking at their products to see what nutrition they get from it. They're looking at that nutritional panel in the back, and it leads into a clean label trend. So when they're looking at their ingredients, they want to know that vitamin C is coming from a fruit instead of just having an enriched vitamin C. And half of consumers are saying that it is extremely important to them to have a clean label. And nearly 9 in 10 private label manufacturers cited clean label as their biggest growth opportunity for 2020. And so there's body health that is very important for consumers. But now consumers are also really concerned about their mental health. And foods can help out with that as well. We've seen a rise of essential oils and botanicals in foods that have mental health benefits. And an example of this is Dr. Brew's Clear Mind Kombucha. That's kombucha with rosemary, mint, and sage. And that combination can help you relax just from whole foods ingredients. And Flavorman has said that they can expect botanicals to be paired with ingredients such as berries, because they go really well together. And then one of the exciting things we have found in our research is the #1 emotion associated with blueberries was happiness. And our theory is that because a lot of people that we've been talking to have said that they have these great memories of summertime and picking blueberries, eating blueberry pie. It means that there's a warm breeze in the air and it's summertime and the blueberries are fresh and plump. And so I know I have those memories and it really makes me think of happiness.
Yeah, so Julia, speaking about happiness, and actually before I make that comment, I want to apologize to everybody. I was trying to advance the slides and it might have been locked for some of you because the view that I was previewing versus the view that I saw on my screen was a little bit different. A lot of those details that Julia was just going over are formally detailed in the actual report as well. So I apologize if you didn't get any screen time with some of the information that Julia has shared so far. Going back to that happiness component, so InsightsNow is all about behaviors, right? And some of that is, we do that through emotions testing in the emotions space. And I can't personally help but notice that every time I talk to people about this blueberry report and this blueberry assignment, a lot of people had a childhood memory that they would want to share with me. So either they remember picking blueberries, or they remember cooking with blueberries, or some kind of nostalgic factor. And I know that you mentioned that word earlier. So how did nostalgia impact these trends and what you found about blueberries?
So actually, our next trend is comfort and nostalgia, and blueberries really fit into that. They're Americana. They are, everybody's been eating them in America at least almost their entire lives, and so people who have those memories really equate blueberries with that comfort and nostalgia. And we can see this trend really coming together in things like the Dunkaroos relaunch. Truly and Bud Light both launched retro seltzers. And we see Doritos 3D Crunch Chips coming back. A lot of the people that were born in the 90s are older now. They're having kids. They're young, and they're starting to go into, what do kids eat? What did I eat as a kid? I want these things again for that comfort and nostalgia, especially with everything being so topsy-turvy right now, and everything's very like wishy-washy. Grounding yourself in the food that you ate growing up can really help provide that comfort for you. And that also leads into consistent hits. These are flavors that have hit ubiquity, and this is a trend that's always there. People always love things that have hit the ubiquity. And Firmenich announced in 2020 that classic blueberry was the flavor of the year. And it's important to look at the fact that they put classic blueberry. It wasn't just blueberry. It's because it's that summertime classic that everybody knows and provides that comfort for them. So this is a kind of combined trend, the ubiquity and the comfort and consistent hits. And I think we thought it was really cool that Flavorman announced that. I wasn't aware that they had a flavor of the year. So when I found this, I was really happy. I was like, wow, this is really going to help me with my report. Yeah, so it was helpful.
Yeah, and Julia and I would actually like to launch another poll on this topic. So is anybody in the audience today also familiar with this classic blueberry flavor of the year from 2020? What I found really interesting about this, while we get in a few more votes, Julia, is I'm sure this probably felt like a jackpot to your team when you were doing your secondary analysis and finding out information about blueberries. Like, how amazing was that this material was available?
I mean, so I know that blueberries are great. They're healthy. They taste wonderful. And I could see with the trends, I could see that they fit right in, and to have that verified by Firmenich, it was serendipitous.
Yeah, and so it looks like we're not alone. It looks like most of our audience here as well was not familiar with the classic blueberry 2020 flavor of the year. So now that we're all in the know, I feel a little bit better that we're all on the same page. And so, Julia, something that you mentioned earlier, and it's just been on my mind, and I'm glad that we're going to tackle this next, is what makes blueberries, or why are blueberries considered a superfood? So I've got that little superhero cape on there because the superfood makes it feel like it's got like hero-like properties to it.
Yeah, so this is a term kind of thrown around a little bit in the industry. And we do want to make sure that what these trends, a lot of them have to do with health, and we want to make sure that whatever we're putting in our food is actually providing a lot of nutrition. So blueberries are great. They have 80 calories per 1 cup serving, and that's mainly because they're 84% water, which is something to take into account when you're doing product development. There's ways that there's sometimes that can be beneficial, sometimes that can hurt you, but there's ways to remove that water. They're also certified as heart healthy through the American Heart Association, which is fabulous. That means that depending on how you're using those blueberries, that certification can transfer to your product, so you can have the logo on your package. They're a good source of fiber. They have a lot of polyphenols, which is an important antioxidant. And then they're a good source of vitamin C. So it's great for your immune system. So after we did that trend research, we wanted to see if so we did the trend research, we looked at the nutrition, we know it's good for you, but do consumers know it's good for you? The less amount of education we have to do on the packaging, the better. We just want people to look at it and get it. So we used InsightsNow ingredient implicit associations and benefit scores to figure out what people were thinking about blueberries. And we have an unlimited account, which is great. So I can run as much as I want. And I looked at a lot of different fruits and a lot of different benefits. And I really wanted to compare to see what people thought about different fruits compared to blueberries, and just overall if people equate blueberries with healthy benefits.
Yeah, so as being the director of the Innovation Center, I'm obviously super stoked when I see people using our information and using our data and how it's being applied. But I'm not always on that front end of this information, right? As the director, I'm usually part of helping build the database or fielding requests or helping people navigate how to use the platform. So I was so excited to be completely transparent and completely frank when Julia brought up to me how they used one of our databases. So I realize not everybody on this call is familiar with the Innovation Center and specifically the Scoring Center. So the Scoring Center is comprised of 3 different databases. For this project, we're going to focus on the ingredient implicit associations and benefits. And this is a database of behavior scores in relation to an ingredient and their functional benefit. Right now, we mostly have functional health-related benefits in there, but we're not limited to that, so we can always expand into other benefit categories. We use consumers to test in a timed response, which is you see an example of that on your screen right now. Does coconut support a promote heart health claim if you were to see that on a package? It's a very quick reaction. It's just yes or no. It's not necessarily gauging how educated or knowledgeable the consumers are versus their perception and their opinion and the connections that they're making between ingredients and benefits. So while this might look like a really simple response, you're just asking yes or no, the magic behind our behavioral scores is actually in the timed response. So our survey platform, our calibration, is actually going to be counting how quickly they say yes and how quickly they say no. And you might respond to me with, well, Kate, everybody's timed response might be different. And that's absolutely correct in part of the calibration technique that we've created. So before a participant or a consumer would get to this actual ingredient screen, we'll do timed tests with them with some practice questions. So we know based on this current survey experience, your time to respond might be X amount of seconds. And sometimes the difference between yes and no and fast or slow might be milliseconds, but that's the magic and that's the leverage that we're calculating in here. It's also important to know the response might not always be yes or no. So for this ingredient database one, that's specifically the response. But if we were using this application in another context, it might be okay and avoid, or agree or disagree. It would be some kind of binary response that's putting you in either this bucket or that bucket pretty plainly. It is not a choice metric and it's not a scale type metric. To give you a little bit more context so that I can actually show you the data table that Julie and her team used, the foundation of the scoring center, and really all of the innovation center, because we use this survey technique throughout the platform, is derived from using the modes of thinking framework. And our implicit test is examining that speed to response plus the direction. So on the pass screen, we saw yes or no. So how quickly yes, how quickly no. And that's giving us an idea of uncovering the subconscious behavior, or in this case, the subconscious association that consumers are having with that ingredient and with that benefit. And specifically what I mean is we're leveraging implicit, which is fast thinking, or explicit, which is slow thinking. We use our calibration and our measurement system to basically give every ingredient at the individual level a score. And then we use those individual scores and we average them across everybody who participated. So let's just say on average, we get about 100 or so scores per ingredient. That overall score, which I'm going to show you on the next slide, can be rated on a 0 to 100 scale. And this is not a percentage. It's not 50% of people agreed with yes. It's a score of 50. And 50 is kind of our main breakout here. So anything above a 50 is going to be positive, and anything below 50 is going to be negative. You'll also see that we really have this broken out into 4 quadrants. So we've got 100 to 75 as a strong positive connection. And then 74.9 to 50 is going to be a positive connection. 49.9 to 25 is going to be negative. And then anything below negative is a strong negative. And this has really helped to give them context on both fast and its positive or negative association. I know that was a really fast lesson, so we're going to get hands-on with that right here on this slide. So this is one of the data tables that Julia and her team pulled out of that implicit database. And this was all completely on demand. They did not have to request additional data runs or request additional research because we already had these scores available. We're always growing our database. So if you're in the database and you see something that we don't have, that's where you can shoot me a note and let me know, and we can work with you to get things added. So looking at blueberries, if we look across this top line bar, we see for all of these benefits, pretty much everything but one of them is positively associated. Everything is in that 50 plus score range. So let's layer in that actual scoring guide here. We see that 3 of them have positive connections for being between 50 and 75. Those are things like increasing energy, helps support relaxation, and helps support stress management. So blueberries have a positive connection with those 3 different health benefits. And then when we add the next layer in, a majority of these health benefits are actually strongly positively associated. So things like improving brain function and memory, promoting heart health, which again, you might not have seen that on one of the slides earlier, was a strong component that Julia's team discovered. And this offered alignment on that not only do we know that from a scientific and a nutrition standpoint, consumers are also making that connection. It's also strongly connected with providing immune support, providing weight management assistance, helping general overall health, as well as providing support for physical and athletic performance. So blueberries, this makes sense for why it's considered a superfood, Julie. It's really hitting high marks across the board on different health benefits. All right, we've already collaborated with you a couple of times. We've got another poll for you here. And I think might be leading you a little bit, but I think we're going to be interested in what the results here say. So we decided to take a quick look at providing immunity support. So out of all of the scores that we compared against for this data file, blueberries are ranked number 1. So 84.69, that's the top position for this list of ingredients. And I'm bringing this up because as R&D, insights, and marketing people, it probably makes sense that you really shouldn't look at data in a vacuum, or you get in trouble if you look at data too singularly. So by making these comparisons, like what we're about to do, you're able to just leverage that much more insight and that much more analysis on what your score means in comparison to other ingredients. So let's pull up this poll for what you think the number 2 ingredient is on this list. So you have the choices between orange, cherry, dates, lemon, and acai. We're about halfway through voted now. All right, I think we're going to be really interested in these results. So let me show you where those results netted out. So we've got most of the group feeling that oranges are probably number 2, followed by acai and then dates. So I would love a drum roll here, please. Julia, are you good with sound effects? The number 2 ingredient for this list is actually lemon. So we can see that consumers are identifying lemon with immunity support pretty strongly. So again, this one is also above a 75 score. It's 78.57. So what about the rest of the list? Where did oranges fall then if it wasn't number 2? Oranges here were actually ranked number 3. So they were 2 behind blueberries and 1 behind the lemon. And this kind of information is what makes our database really powerful. If we go off of our own biases and off of our own assumptions with what we think the answers might be, this data is providing you that consumer validation depending on the context that you need it for. So again, if you were just pulling out oranges for immunity support, yes, that's strongly associated. But there are other things that are more strongly associated in terms of immune support. So there's different ways that you can look at this table based on the overall ingredient profile across all benefits, as well as looking across the benefits themselves. This is really a glorified Excel table, if you will, in that regard. There's lots of different ways you can manipulate it. So this is just one way that we can interpret it. Julia and her team did actually do another level of analysis about promoting heart health. So Julia, I'm going to let you explain the next one.
So when we're doing these tables, we really are trying to figure out how to use this information in our product development. And the biggest thing is either breaking our assumptions or confirming them. We love this data because now we know what the consumers are thinking, and it's not just our opinions anymore. So this is a great example of zooming into one of the benefits and figuring out how this helps us with ideation and R&D. So we look at this and say we want to create a heart healthy snack or product. We can go in here and say, yes, blueberries rates extremely high. Consumers know it's good for your heart. But what else is in there? So we looked at this and we're like, oh, green tea ranks really high. So let's make a sparkling green tea blueberry drink that's like a morning lift type of drink that has a little bit of caffeine in it from the green tea. It has blueberry puree in it that's lower in sugar than a lot of other fruits, and it can really be this provide consumers with a heart healthy option. And we know that combining the blueberries with the green tea is really going to signal that it's heart healthy to consumers, and without having to guess now.
Yeah, I found that super interesting with how you took not just what the ingredient score was, but how well will that ingredient pair well with other ingredients depending on the outcome or the association that you're looking for. I personally hadn't even considered that as a way to use our database. So thank you for bringing that to my attention and also educating our group with us today.
And so now we started looking at the different formats of blueberries. There are a ton of different formats. If you make a food product, you can get blueberries into it, I promise. There are some examples include fresh, which everybody knows and loves in the grocery store. You can also get IQF. There is traditionally dried. That's infused and uninfused. We also have more modern drying techniques like infrared drying and freeze drying. There are juices available, either concentrated or unconcentrated. Canned is a really great kind of hidden gem because they have those cooked caramelly notes, but they're still whole and plump and give you that burst. There is powders, either spray dried or whole berries that are dried and ground. And then we have purees, and those come in concentrates and non-concentrates as well.
Now, I mentioned earlier when we opened up this presentation today that they were going to share some food inspiration with how blueberries could be used in new food products. So, one, if you're not hungry yet, you're going to be hungry through these next couple of slides. And before we go into these actual inspiration categories, which Julia and her team actually went to the bench and made different products. So, spoiler alert, all of the photographs that are in the deck today are not photoshopped. They're not renderings. Julia and their greater team actually came up with all of those recipes and had them professionally pictured and photographed. So those are all real developments that came after blueberries. And I find that incredibly impressive. And maybe for everybody in R&D that's expected, but I was very surprised by the different combinations that came out of this. So Julia's going to walk us through 4 of the different food categories for this inspiration.
So we started off with some snacks. These snacks tend to lean into that 90s nostalgia trend. These first 2 are based off of things that kids growing up in the 90s ate, but it's a more adult version, a little healthier. So we have this blue cashew super bar that's kind of like a take on a PB&J flavor, or those Nutri-Grain bars with the jelly in the middle. This is also a great alternative to a date-based bar. Some consumers really don't like dates, so this is another option for them to have a blueberry-based bar that's a little more tangy, a little less sweet, and it goes really well with that cashew. And then you have this blueberry ginger fruit roll snack, which is our take on a fruit roll up, and but it's not as sweet. It has that ginger to spice things up, and it has this great blue color that you see in there with a lot of the nutrients still in there from the blueberries.
Those fruit roll snacks, Julia, being a 90s kid myself, definitely makes me think back to my lunchbox days.
Yeah, you're going to definitely want to trade. If someone shows up to your office with that, make sure you have something good to trade with them. Then we looked at savory items. So blueberries really do well in savory foods. There's cranberries are really well known to use in savory foods, but blueberries add an earthiness and a tang that go very well. One of the things we made was this dried blueberry almond and caperberry couscous. We found that these like salty umami things like olives and capers go so well with blueberries. It's so delicious. And we created this dried couscous that has freeze-dried blueberries in it. And when you rehydrate it, all you have to do is rehydrate it in the microwave. And these blueberries plump up like fresh blueberries were put in there. And we didn't know that. We were actually surprised, and we like need to tell everybody about this, that it works so well. So that was a really cool discovery during our bench work. Next, we looked at traditionally sweet items, or using blueberries in the traditional way in sweet items, but with a little bit of a twist. We did these blueberry sweet cream tamales. And you can see the blueberries in this give the tamales that intense blue color, and that lasts throughout the cooking process or processing methods. So that really shows off the great color and great flavor you can get with blueberry powders and blueberry juice. Then we also did these blueberry allspice rolls, which is a more modern take on a jelly roll and a cinnamon roll put together. The warm spice from the allspice really boosts that comfort and nostalgia level of the blueberries. And then we talked about how blueberries are functional for the consumer's health. So we obviously wanted to jump into that. And we created these blueberry collagen dark chocolate chews, which is the idea is that you take a couple in the morning and it's like your beauty health routine. The collagen's great for your skin, and also the blueberries provide a lot of antioxidants that help your skin as well. So in this, there is freeze-dried blueberry, which provides some crunch, and traditionally dried blueberries, which are really chewy, and they add this contrasting texture that's really nice with the dark chocolate. And then it's coated in blueberry and spirulina, and that's how we get that intense blue color on the outside.
I see one comment already that came in with us teasing you about all of those snack options. So I am sorry that we made this painful for you. If we could have sent out snacks, I think we definitely would have provided some samples for those different ideas. It looks like we have a couple of other questions or comments that have come in, so I'm going to take a second and move that screen over. If you have anything else now that you would like to write in or ask, we'd be happy to hear from you. All right, so Julia, the first question that I'm seeing is, what part of this process was most exciting for you as a culinologist?
Definitely getting to play on the bench. So, I mean, we usually have pretty large guardrails when we're doing ideations, but this was just based on trends and coming up with really interesting ways to use blueberries. So it was really fun to go kind of a little more wild than we normally do with our ideations and on the bench.
Another question I see here is, what makes an ingredient trendy?
When we're looking at trends, we discover that it's really based on consumers' needs. So it's no surprise that things like mental health and physical health are trending in the middle of a pandemic. It's just what the consumers need. So when you're thinking about trends, just break it down into what your category of people that you're trying to hit really need, and that's probably going to be the trend that's in that group right now.
All right, another question here says, how do you balance the claims of pure blueberries offering health benefits versus blueberries as a component where they may not be high enough dose to offer as much?
So you definitely have to validate that you have enough of the nutrients still left after your processing method and after the blueberries processing method, and that you have enough in there to make these health claims. And on the United States Blueberry Council, High Bush Blueberry Council's website, there are resources for you to figure out the claims you can make with blueberries and how much you need in there and what type of what kind of blueberries you can use. So especially when it comes to the powders and the dried blueberries, there are drying methods that preserve a lot more of the vitamins and nutrients than other drying methods. And I'd really suggest talking to your supplier because they'll know the most about their drying method and what nutrients are preserved.
Thank you for that, Julia. And another question that I see here, which might be the last one, are there any facts or details that didn't make it into the final report that you found interesting?
Yeah, we did put almost everything we learned about blueberries in this report. And also a lot of these slides are straight out of the report. So if you missed anything, feel free to go through that report and a lot of it's in there. But one of the things that we learned that really, I guess I had these assumptions about blueberry farms in general and how I just assumed they were coming from huge industrial farms, but a lot of them are smaller family farms that are spread out throughout the country. So it's totally possible to get local blueberries to your production facility in not the whole country, but in many, many parts of the country. I'm in the Pacific Northwest here in Seattle, and we have a bunch of blueberry farms around here. So it's really cool that I get to work on something that's so local and really supports a lot of different farmers all at once.
Yeah, for sure. As someone that's not in R&D like myself, I just have this perception that most of our processed food comes from major production plants or like major farming operations. So that warms my heart a little bit to know that there's still family operations and that smaller farms are being included in this space. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's cool to work on something that's so like that the farmers really they're really involved in the United States High Bush Blueberry Council. So I really like that.
All right. Well, if any other, oh, sorry, here's one more. Oh, I think we already answered that one. If we did answer your question, feel free to let us know. We'll put up our contact information at the end. Another thing that I just wanted to make sure we took a second to do was to thank CuliNex and the U.S. High Bush Blueberry Council for partnering with us on this information and allowing us to share the report and share the data with a wider audience. It's been a pleasure to work with you all, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for finding this blueberry thank you graphic on Google because it couldn't have been more cool. Julia also mentioned that InsightsNow and CuliNex partner up pretty often. So one of those ways is through our CRAVES process, which is our Agile Food Product Development. You can go to either one of our websites to learn more or reach out to us if you'd like to talk to us about how to help analyze food ingredients as well as the behavior components into your next innovation. And if the Innovation Center sounds interesting to you, I know we only highlighted one part of it here. There are 3 centers altogether. We have our Learning Center, which is a behavioral library. It's where we publish and post all of our trending information and our methodologies and approaches to behavior research. And then we also have the Testing Center. That third piece, the Testing Center, is where you can request collaborative project requests using templated or semi-custom research designs. One of the ways that you can use the Testing Center is if the Scoring Center is missing information or you'd like to add to it, you would do that request through that third position. Getting started with the Innovation Center is free. It doesn't cost anything to create your account, which you can sign up for at InsightsNow.com, or you can reach out to myself directly and I can help get you started. Julia's information is also here if you'd like more information about their report and about CuliNex. So thank you, everybody who was able to join. I hope you're able to go grab a snack and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.